Oh man, I don't think so. I may have helped him with phrasing
Mm.
once in a while, but until the last album, I wasn't there for that many of David's lead vocals, because I was busy doing other things. But the last album, he wouldn't sing for Wes. He would only sing for me. So I produced all his vocals on the last album, and it was a piece of cake. We had so much fun, just
Did
the two
you,
of us. You know?
yeah, did you enjoy Bulletin Board from the point of view it was a far more mature David singing under the Partridge Family?
Well, I watched him grow. He was 19, you know, when we started it. And I watched him grow, and Wes encouraged him, and so did I. Keep doing what you're doing, man. It's selling.
Yeah.
Don't even ask why. Just take the money.
You made music which was, the soundtrack of our youth, and you listen to that music and you are instantly transported back there. You're a teenager again. You can feel and smell everything about that.
Yep. It's amazing. It really is amazing, because it was such a labor of love. And I'd say 90% of it was inspired. Some of it wasn't. I can tell you the ones that aren't. They were still good, but they weren't hit records,
No.
All the hit records were all inspired. I mean, there were things where I said, I'm the vessel, I'm not in control of this. This is coming from somewhere else. And I'm just sitting here writing notes as fast as I can.
Where do you rate that in your career?
Oh, it's in probably the top five experiences that I had. I mean, right up there is conducting for Barbra Streisand and conducting for Andy Williams and singing with him. And I mean, there are really only a handful of, out of 35 years, of really top-notch moments in my life, and that was it. I mean, there was some stress involved. The last album, David and Wes were not seeing eye to eye, because Wes wanted to be, David wanted to be an R&B singer, and Wes said, no, you'll never sell any records, and Wes was right, by the way. And that's really why David left the show, because he was convinced he could be an R&B singer, and all the friends around him convinced him that he could be an R&B singer. But since then he did at least one R&B version of I Think I Love You that was terrific. But he wasn't that kind of singer. He was different. It's another thing that he didn't like about himself. He didn't sound like anybody, and that bothered him.
Can you remember the first day he came into the recording studio and you heard him sing?
I don't. I don't. Isn't that something? I don't remember that day. I remember a lot of days, but I don't remember the first time I heard him sing.
No.
It may have been a playback.
Right.
I may not have been there, but I don't really recall. Yeah. But I knew immediately that the kid, well, first of all, I knew he was marketable and he was gorgeous. And he had a great personality, very, very caring heart he had. And his voice was one in a million. It was just not like anybody else. And that was the thrill of David Cassidy, and it was his downfall in the end, in my opinion. He didn't like the fact that he didn't sound like anybody.
Really?
Yeah.
So are you saying that he found it hard to accept that he was so different?
Yes, very. Had he been able to do that, and maybe if his father wasn't so jealous of his success, that had a lot to do with it too.
Yeah.
His father was so jealous of David's success. Really awful to David. It's like anything else, the more Wes and I would encourage him, his dad would say two things and we'd have to start all over, And David was a professional on all fronts. He just couldn't accept it. Right. That's my opinion. I mean, I may be completely wrong, but that's just my opinion of working with him all those years. I took him shopping the very first, because he was not dressing the part. So there was a little place around the corner from United Studios called Lenny's Boot Parlor, and it was just this little hole in a wall, little boutique, but he was selling all the clothes that were hip then. And you know what put him out of business? When dungarees, or when Levi's came in, he never went with the flow. He stayed with the slacks and the paisley shirts and the silk shirts and all that. And it finally drove him out of business. It's really too bad, but that's where I took David shopping, and we bought stuff, and he looked great. And I was a good dresser because my mom always dressed us. She always dressed us up for Sunday school, and so I always loved nice clothes.
You mentioned earlier on about recording I Think I Love You. Did you get the feeling then, at that moment when David's vocals were put down, that you had a huge hit on your hands?
No doubt. No doubt. I mean, we could tell you as a group, our opinion, our four opinion, the four of our opinion. 9 times out of 10, we can tell you when we finished the song if it was going to be a hit. And we were right probably 90% of the time.
Were there any songs on any of the albums, or perhaps there were some demos that you did that were never released as singles or should have been the hits that you think they should have been?
One of them was my very favorite arrangement of all times, and I got to arrange the strings, the horns, the everything. Roller Coaster. That should have been a single, in my opinion. It was fun. It was fast. It had energy. It was just from the brass. Even though I'm bragging on myself, I mean, the brass parts, the string parts, the rhythm parts, the way David sang it, the background, everything, to me should have been a hit.
Yep.
And then a song that Tony Asher and I wrote. It's so weird. After all these albums, I was head of production for Wes Farrell's production company. And we brought in a friend of mine, Tony Asher, to run a commercial division. So Tony and I worked together every day. We ended up being partners years later, but Tony was an unbelievable lyricist. He wrote all of Brian Wilson's hits on Pet Sounds. Tony wrote Caroline, No, Wouldn't It Be Nice? God Only Knows. I mean, who would start a love song with I May Not Always Love You? I mean, that's just stupid. But Tony's still a dear friend. He's suffering from dementia, and he sounds like he's there when we talk, but his wife said that 5 minutes later he won't remember who he talked to and what we talked about. So it breaks my heart because he was so brilliant. Well, one day I walked in the office and I said, Tony. He said, what? I said, why haven't we written a song for the Partridge Family? This is really stupid. And he went, yeah, you're right. It is. Dumb. I know the producer. So he said, what do you got? And I said, well, nothing yet. I'll talk to you tomorrow. So I went home and was just messing around with Piano Groove and came up with How Long Is Too Long.
Yeah.
That's all I had. But I came in the next morning and I said, here it is. I started playing it, How long is too long? Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. How long is too long? And Tony said, stop. I said, what? He said, what does it mean, how long is too long? And I said, you're the lyricist, figure it out. And he did. It was a great lyric. In fact, that song ended up on the Greatest Hits album for one reason, because one of the vice presidents at Bell, I think it was Bell at the time, it was his favorite Partridge Family of all time. So he put it on the Greatest Hits album. That's something.
That's something else, isn't it?
And I keep thinking about it. I've never received a penny for that.
Oh.
And I know who published it, and I've looked around for it before, but I got so tired of waiting on the phone but I'll keep looking. I know there's a few $100 out there somewhere.
But when you look back at the early Partridge Family catalogue, what were your favourite songs?
Probably I lean toward Tony Romeo, anything he wrote. So anything he penned, they were so weird. They were so off the wall, musically, lyrically, whatever.
And then you've got David's voice painting the most beautiful picture.
Yeah, there you go. You can't miss.
It's just the perfect combination, wasn't it?
There you go. Exactly. Perfect combination of everything, of the musicians, of Wes, of David, of us, the writers, all of that. And, I didn't want to know anything about the family story-wise. My only interest was their performing ability and what they would do as performers. So I stayed away on purpose. Right. I wish I had. I wish I'd have gone and watched some tapings and stuff, but I just didn't think it was appropriate for me. That's just me. But in the beginning, see, they didn't know, nobody knew David sang. So that's why the four of us were the family. And the leads before David were my brother and Stan Farber. Together, they were the lead sound. And because my brother and I had been in a group, Love Generation, we used a lot of our stuff. It was good stuff, and it was written by good people, and so that's what they used.
Yeah.
Until Wes found out David could sing, and he went, wait a minute.
Yes.
I remember Wes walked in. Here's this New York guy, and he walks into the producers, and he said, do you want hit records or not? And they said, who are you? And yes, we do. He said, well, hire me and I'll give them to you. We hired him and he did.
Well, he was an excellent producer, wasn't he?
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
Because you worked for him later, didn't you, for his record company for Chelsea?
He started Chelsea Records. He asked me to be the head of production.
Yeah.
So I oversaw all production and doing some producing myself. Like we produced the group was called New York City, black group. And we did the tracks in LA. Oh no, we wanted to do the tracks in New York. So I flew back to New York and did the tracks there. That was a great experience, a really great experience. Great players, different from LA, but great players. And that was really fun.
Did you approve of Wes's decision to slow David's recordings down that quarter track, have him sing in his own voice and then bring in...
We had done that for so many singers. Oh, Bobby Sherman. It's the only one that comes to mind, but we did it for everybody. We needed them to sound younger than they were. He was playing a 16-year-old. He was 19. It wasn't very much. It wasn't, because you can make him sound like Mickey Mouse if you want to. If you slow it down enough. And it sounds phony. But if you just do it a little bit. Now, because I have good relative pitch, I couldn't be around when they would use a potentiometer to slow the tape down or speed it up while they were playing it. Right. It would make me nauseous. The pitch doing that would make me throw up, so I'd have to leave. Right. So I could never be around when they did that.
When David was in the studio with you, and we've all heard about the intense hours that he spent on the set, and then he'd spend the evening recording, and then he'd be doing his concerts at weekends. What was he like to work with in the recording studio? Was he always interested in what was going on, and did he offer suggestions and become involved?
He was 100% there, and it was like it was the only relaxation he got all day. That was my impression. He loved it.
Right.
Loved singing, and he was there to please. True professional, and he had fun. I mean, I never really realized until later how hectic his life was, especially on weekends. You know, I had no idea what he was doing because I didn't hang out with him. I just saw him in the studio. But when I worked with him in the studio, he was a consummate pro and there to have fun and there to do a great job.
And turn things round quickly. What was the pressure like in the studio? Because you must have been up against it time-wise on certain occasions, and especially when it came to releasing the Christmas album.
Oh, man. I don't remember it being pressure. I really don't. Right. We loved it so much. And because we were prepared, you know, had we gone in there not having a clue, then that would be pressure. But everything was pre-done. It was pre-arranged. It was pre-thought out. The songs were pre-picked. And Wes was convinced they were good songs. I was convinced they were good songs. And when we go in there to record, it was just a formality for me. I never felt any pressure. We got it done as fast as we could because we loved doing that. But normally we would do 3 or 4 sides in 3 hours. That was our deal. Some of the paperwork on the sessions that say we rehearsed for 3 hours and then we sang for 3 hours, I don't ever remember that. I remember, maybe that's just the way Ron wrote it up, because although I was a contractor, I got so busy doing other things that I asked Ron to do it. And it paid a little bit more, but it wasn't worth my time. I had too many other things to do, writing and everything else. And so I had Ron do it. And I mean, we would rehearse a song before we sang it. We'd usually sing through it 2 or 3 times, and then we'd have it, and we'd do it. We sight read, so whatever was on the paper, that's what we did. And if Wes didn't like it, we'd change it. But most of the time, he loved it.
You told me some time ago that watching David was like seeing the emergence of a superstar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. He had it. Whatever it is, he had it in spades. Yeah, when I saw him the first time, it was like, forget about it. I mean, forget about it. This guy's got it. He would have had it for years to come had he not been trying to drink his problems away or his perceived problems.
As a singer, where do you rate his talent?
Oh, he's Frank Sinatra to me. He's Bing Crosby. He's Barbra Streisand. He's the perfectionism of Streisand and the professionalism of Sinatra, and except he had more patience than Sinatra. He's just one of a kind, like those people I mentioned. And there's Elvis. It's another one of a kind. But Elvis believed in himself. That was the difference. And even he had problems. So
Well, creative